Hello and welcome to session 1 of 5 for this week's bootcamp. We've given a couple of extra minutes today just to let everybody join because the first day we find that nobody joins on time. Going forward, we will start at 1 p.m. Eastern time quite punctually because there's quite a lot to get through, but the first day we like to give a couple of extra minutes. I'm joined today by Mandy, who's going to field all of your questions.
Hi, everyone.
And also by Colin, who's going to be just sat in the back, just watching how we're doing everything.
Hey, everyone.
So the structure of our training is pretty simple. We're going to go through each day, and it's designed that you can follow along, you can learn with us, and it's going to give you an idea on the process throughout ThreatLocker, as well as just some hints, tips, and showing you how everything works. So today's session, we're going to talk about what ThreatLocker is, show around the portal so you have an understanding on how the portal looks, works, how to navigate it. We'll talk about ThreatLocker's access, adding administrators, new organizations, the initial learning period, and deploying computers. Sounds like a lot. It's actually a relatively short session, and we'll just go through that pretty easily. So I'm going to start by sharing out my screen. I'm going to show you a little diagram, and this is going to be added into the box drive that we're going to provide a link to. We do record all of these sessions, the same link, and Mandy will pop it into chat for me. And the same link will be used for every recording every day. So if you do end up missing a day, the same link will give you that recording for that day's training as well. And I'm also going to include this diagram.
It's already there.
Perfect. So if you can't copy from chat, just somebody post a question in the Q&A section and Mandy will respond in kind to that and everybody will be able to see it from there. So you should be able to see my screen now, Mandy?
Perfect.
Okay, so this diagram is very useful if you want to explain to someone exactly where ThreatLocker fits in and kind of to understand what ThreatLocker is. So people talk about layers in security. What they're really talking about is avenues of attack. So when you're talking about your email and your antivirus and stuff like that, they're not, it's email, phishing links, stuff like that. They're just avenues that you could be attacked. There's 3 ways to protect, 3 layers to security or 3 sides to the security triangle. And then everything inside is what you're trying to protect. The first one is the human. This is your users. Your users are there and originally we used to rely on just them. Since then, obviously, technology's changed and we've had other things in there. But originally, it used to just be users and you'd rely on them to create passwords and not share those passwords. And we do that through security awareness training. And with every day that goes by, new things go into that training. Now, I'm not saying that security awareness training isn't important. Your humans are still an entry point. You need to train them, but in reality, it's a 50-50 on whether or not the user is going to actually follow that training and not click the link or download the program or run the program. So it is an important area, but it is still a 50-50 at best. Next, you come into your detection. Your detection is where you've got your antivirus, your EDR, your threat hunting, your anti-phishing, your anti-spam, the stuff like that that are stopping known threats and looking at behavior on things that they're not unsure on and trying to stop the user actually receiving that link. So if you take your phishing email, say your phishing email comes through, your detection will either detect it or not. It is as simple as that. It's probably got a higher percentage of chance of success than your users, but it still comes down to whether or not it will or won't be detected. And then you rely on that user not to click that link if they do receive it, which is where we move into the controls. Now, in that example of the phishing email, if that user does receive that email and clicks on that link, now obviously you're back into detection to make sure your web filtering is seeing if that link is safe or not. So you're back into the will it, won't it. But then you have your control. Say the user gets to that site and they type in their username and password. The control in this instance would be dual factor authentication. Not something ThreatLocker does, but it's an understanding on what the kind of controls are. The controls are set by administrators. They are things that enforce the policies that you teach. They back you up if your detection does fail. They are the ones that are actually restricting what's going on. And that's where your whitelisting comes in. Because if somebody goes to a website and downloads an application and your anti-spam doesn't stop it, and your web filtering doesn't stop it, and the user clicks on it despite the fact that they're not supposed to, your whitelisting is a thing that says, I don't know you, you're not allowed to run. So ThreatLocker fits into that control section. We are an avenue of security that you can control and put policies around to say what a user can and can't do. So, like I said, this triangle is just a good representation on that kind of area. And you want to think about things on the control side, because the controls are the bits that you can really control. Detection, you can't control. You're reliant on it. Users, you can't control. Humans will or won't click the links. But administrators can enforce controls and policies that do actually protect you, regardless of whether or not your humans and users decide to click on things that they shouldn't. So, onto the ThreatLocker portal. So I'm taking an assumption here that everybody on this training has at least got a login to the ThreatLocker portal. If you don't, do speak to your salesperson about getting a trial started. It will make your life through this training a little bit easier if you can see in your environment what I'm seeing and showing. So, sorry, excuse me.
Michael, oh, we did have one question I answered in the chat. They wanted the link again, so I posted it in the Q&A as well and let them know that those recordings will be up about 24 hours after each session.
Perfect. So you should be able to see that link now. Anybody else who wants that link, it will be in the answer question side. Thank you, Mandy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we're logging into the portal, put in our username, our password, and you're going to see a log me out after 30 minutes of inactivity. You can decide which one you choose. This is the first step in logging in, and it's an important one because a lot of people go, well, I want to stay logged in for a day, and they click that. It is inactivity, which means at 5 o'clock in the evening, if you finish, you're lucky enough to finish work at 5, and you walk away from your computer and you come back the next morning, you're still logged in. It will keep you in for 24 hours after, if you choose one day. So after you stop touching the portal, you will stay logged in for a day after that. So just keep that in mind. Either whatever you're picking, just log out at the end of the day or pick a shorter period of time, just so if somebody gets physical access to your computer, they're not already logged into your ThreatLocker portal. So I'm just going to choose 30 minutes because I'm not going to be inactive a lot, and I'm going to log in. So the first thing you're going to see when you log in is our organizations page. And I'm going to start on the menu here on the left-hand side, and I'm going to work my way down. And I'm going to talk about each page. It will be relatively brief. Each page is relatively the same, just giving you different information. There's a couple of things that you can see from here. You've obviously got at the top left here who you're logged in as and who you're currently managing. So my organization is called ThreatLocker Training, and I have 3 customers, 42, 516, and then new product. I also have my logout button there. And down at the bottom here is get help from a cyber hero. I'll probably mention cyber heroes a few times throughout this training. They are our support. They are available 24/7. This is where you click to get your assistance. You can do it through live chat or offline ticketing, which I'll cover more when I get down to the help desk side. So starting at the approval center. Approval center is for when you've locked down your computers. And don't worry, we do come back into these areas in more detail as we go through the training. But the approval center is where you're going to be able to see all of your pending requests, your approved requests, everything in here that's been requested by people. And you can also check this box, and you'll see this box on a few pages. And it basically, if you're an MSP, if you're not an MSP, you probably will get less use out of this box. This allows you to see everything for your child organizations as well. So we can see here that Michael.admin on customer 42, Michael Serve has requested putty. I can search this. I can change to see everything that's been approved. I can change to see everything that's been denied or everything that's been ignored. And I can go through and I can see absolutely everything here with a nice easy search and easy drop down. So that's all about the requests. The unified audit, we're going to cover again more detail, but basically this is the place where everything that happens on your computers is going to log. You'll notice the box there for show audit for child organizations again. Then when you search this, you're going to be able to see everything that's happening on those machines, not just the denies or suspicious activity, it logs everything. This is a portal of information. And you can always expand and see more details. So if you want to know more about this, we can expand it. We can see the username, the host name, what policy allowed it, the application name, the process that called it. Everything about this file is in here. And we can also view a file history if we want to see the history on that computer. We can permit it from here. We can add to application. And I'll go into more detail on Wednesday regarding the unified audit, but you can also search for a whole bunch of stuff from here, so you can filter this out. I've only got 457 items. This can get quite a lot depending on the number of computers you have, the number of organizations, and just what's happening on those machines. I've seen this go up to 12 million rows in a day, quite recently actually, of one customer. The idea is it logs absolutely everything. It's to give you the information on what's going on the machine to better prepare you for any decisions that you might have to make. The reports page allows you to pick from a variety of categories of reports, as well as be able to see anything on there. So we can click from reports and then see the reports that we're going to use. So depending on the category you choose, you're going to see different reports. And of course, you can choose all if you just want to see a full list of all the reports there. These are customly made reports. They're used for you. If you want changes to them, they can be requested. The turnaround on those reports is pretty quick as well. So we can add new reports or add additions to reports and stuff like that. And the good thing is if somebody else thinks of something that you might not think of, that report then gets added in here as well. Once we get into application control, we can actually expand that. You're going to see policies, tags, and applications. This is the section that controls everything about whitelisting, ring fencing, and elevation. So we can see our policies page with our drop down on where the policies exist. We can see the policies, we can see the status of the policies. Now we're going to see a little bit more of that as we come into later today as I start learning. But basically this is the policies on what we're allowing. With right at the bottom, page 2, we have a default policy that's going to capture everything else. So this is the policy that denies everything and allows people to request it. So this is the whitelisting side of things. And then you can add in the ring fencing or denies across here as well. Applications are definitions created to make it easy for you to understand and capture files into one definition. I don't have any here, but you'll see more of them as I learn my files. And then each definition can have various file hashes and stuff like that.
Michael, we got a question about the reports page before you get too far away from it.
Yeah.
How much granularity can you get on the reporting tab? For example, can you create a custom report for one specific application or program a customer may have?
It sounds like something that you'd probably want, but chances are you'll get everything for that you need from the unified audit. And if I switch back to the unified audit, I will point out there's an export button. So generally when you're getting that more granular, you tend to just use this because it allows you to quickly filter and then export into a CSV. But they can be as granular as you need. If they are obviously too granular, we don't share them with everyone else because we don't want to, you know, if you're using usernames or PC names and stuff like that. We do have one customer who requested a custom report that gets emailed to him daily for files that get deleted in a certain file path. So it can get really granular. The more generic ones get shared with everyone else. The custom ones obviously are limited to you because I highly doubt it's going to be useful for everyone else if you're saying this particular folder on this particular server. But yes, they can be granular, but as you get more granular, chances are you're just going to use the unified audit.
Thank you, Michael.
Network access control is one of our newest products. This is where we're going to control the access to the computers via the network. Very similar to the application control, it's got a series of policies. We can create policies, we can create various policies to open up ports to certain destinations or to certain ports from certain places. So we're going to cover that more on Friday, but this is one of our newest products. It's all about the network access. So application control is your default deny, your ring fencing, your elevation. Network access control is just the network access. And then very similarly, we've got storage control with the policies as well. And again, you're going to notice very similar to that of the application control or the network access. We've tried to keep the pages very similar. So once you've learned one, you kind of know your way around. You can see the policies by changing the list. You can search and you can see everything that's in there. Now, when we get to the computers page, I'm going to come back to this because it's going to be more useful a little bit later because we're going to cover some deployment today as well. But this is the page where you're going to be able to see all the computers and you can see the host names, the operating systems, what customer they belong to, what group they're in, the ThreatLocker version, all that kind of stuff of when they're checking in and that kind of thing. So you can see all that information all from this page. And you can also enable protection, disable protection, and kind of make sure they're secured and schedule maintenance periods from here as well. Computer groups, we break everything down into groups. Now, by default, you're going to end up with a servers and workstations on every organization. I've created a few global groups here as well. Very useful if you're an MSP, you're going to have lots of child orgs. You can create a global or even a global dash, and you can put any group name. And then if you create one of your customers and create a group called backup servers, these global policies would apply to them. So this is just a way that you can create groups that you can then put policies under that will apply to those computers. And we'll talk about best practices when it comes to that, but you can create as many global groups as you need. But like I said, most organizations start with the servers and workstations, and that's kind of how you stay in for the majority of it. Now, as you get into the larger enterprise, if you're not an MSP, you might break down your groups a little more. So you might have an accounting group and you can have an IT department and stuff like that. But you wouldn't really use the global unless you've got child organizations. Now, if you think I'm going too fast on this, do bear with me. I am coming over. This is just a high-level overview so you're familiar with the portal. As we go through this week, we're going to cover a little bit more. So on the administrators page, obviously, as I'm covering administrators today, I'm going to spend a bit more time on this page. It's just so you kind of get an understanding. Today is about a high-level understanding, and then we dive deeper in as we're doing different parts of the week. So these are my administrators. These are the people that can access ThreatLocker. Now, we can invite new people. There's two ways to create an administrator. I can choose new administrator, and here I can put in their details. I can add their email address. I choose their password. I can set up their MFA, and I can do all that from here and then provide them with the password. I prefer to just click invite and just put in their email address. Then they get an email, they can click on it, and they're going to go straight in to be able to set up their own password. It means that you don't have to know their password and rely on them to then change it. And then you can very easily invite someone. So let's add Colin. Let's going to have him in here. So we add Colin there. Now Colin will receive an email, and in that email, he'll be prompted to be able to log in, set a password, and go through there. I can also reset his passwords. Say Ben forgets his passwords. I can click reset, and he'll get another email to set the password up afterwards. I can also edit these administrators and change their permission sets. So at the moment, Ben's quite restrictive. He's a super admin child. He can view reports and he can view the unified audit. If I want to make him a full administrator of the entire account, I might change him to be a super admin. And I can use any of these different permissions or collection of each of them to build out the administrator I need doing the job that I need them to do. And of course, if Ben ever leaves, I can just delete his account and then he won't be able to access ThreatLocker. So I do recommend using the invite on this. And I'm just going to switch over to my child account from here. So I'm going to switch over to the organizations page and I'm going to go back to administrators. So on the organizations page, as I said, you can see your customers. Next to each customer is a manage button. So if I choose manage, I can actually go to the administrators page again, but this time you'll notice that there's none. That's because I can create administrators for a single organization. So if we've got co-managed support, you can invite the local administrator, or maybe you can invite the CEO and give them read-only access or view unified audit so they can just see what's going on. So you can create users for your customers as well. And they'll only be able to see themselves. They won't be able to see all the other customers that you may have. You can always see who you're managing at the top there. You can see I'm managing customer 42, as well as in the top of the tab. So those administrators are different per organization. And then those administrators, based on their permissions, can access the organization or the child orgs. The billing page is where you're going to be able to see your quotes, your payment details, who your billing contacts are. If you've got any outstanding balances with us, this is all about your quotes and your invoices from ThreatLocker. So when you're going through a trial, might not be as important, but this is the, as you're getting that quote or getting invoices going forward, this is a portal where you can see exactly how many outstanding invoices you've got, or if there's any more quotes that you need to view. You can view them from here and process them accordingly.
Got a question, Michael? If it's an okay time.
Now's a great time.
If you accidentally invite an administrator via the wrong email address, can you simply delete the user invite, or do you have to wait for the account to show up?
It will show up immediately. As you saw with Colin, it immediately showed, so you can delete it. You can edit the username as well if they haven't logged in. But if you do that, you will want to reset the password so they actually get the right email then. But yeah, you can just delete it. So if, say I've typed Colin wrong, I could just delete that and then just invite him again. Not super admin. Super admin. Now I've done something weird on my account. 1 second. Let me just permissions. Should be able to delete him. I've got some restrictions on my account. Usually you'll be able to delete him, but something on mine is stopping me from deleting Colin. I'll have to have a look into that. But yes, you just delete and then re-invite. ThreatLocker University. Once you click this link, you're going to be prompted to fill in some details. Now, I'm going to invite Mandy to talk a little bit about ThreatLocker University because she manages it, she runs it, she's the one responsible for it, so she knows the most about it. So
Yeah, absolutely. ThreatLocker University is your one-stop shop for all your ThreatLocker knowledge. If you have people that you manage and you want to be sure that they're doing the training you want them to do, you can contact me, Mandy at ThreatLocker.com, or come through the Cyber Heroes and they'll set me up. But you can be a manager of your own group, and then you can invite your own users, assign them courses, and follow their progress and make sure they did it. Most of the courses have a quiz at the end that will test your knowledge, be sure that you or your techs are completely understanding what you're going over in the university. One thing to point out here is that password that you're creating is not your ThreatLocker password. It's going to be used just for the university, which is a third party. So don't use your ThreatLocker portal password here.
Yep. Good advice there, Mandy. Definitely always use different passwords, randomly generated. And then when you sign up, it will then go from there. Now, once you've signed up, the next time you click this link, it will take you straight to the university. So it'll actually be used as a method of you getting there as well. Just the first time it'll ask you to sign up. Partner resources is a very useful page. It's got a load of things in here: marketing assets, email templates, Ducky scripts, So for those who aren't familiar with a rubber ducky, they basically look like USB sticks, and they contain little keyboard emulators that can type something like, I think it's 1,000 characters a second. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure that's around about the number. And basically they plug in and they rely on things like PowerShell to be able to download payloads and run them in memory and encrypt all your files. And they both basically look like a normal USB stick, but they're not USB storage. They are just keyboard emulators. So if you have been to any of our like Zero Trust World, you may already have a rubber ducky. If not, I believe you can buy them online pretty cheap from Hack5. And then you can use our scripts to play with that and sort of demonstrate. I think there's some scripts in there to take all your documents out to a public share and stuff like that. Obviously, don't test it on your own machine. Please test it on a nice sandboxed environment. You'll also get some email templates that are good for sending to your customers or your users, as well as some marketing assets if you need to sell ThreatLocker to your customers. So onto the help desk. The help desk is a great place that you're going to be able to raise tickets and be able to see any open tickets. So we can click open new ticket here. It's the same as if you click from get help from a cyber hero. You're prompted here. You get two options. You can do a chat or you can do offline. If you do a chat, it's going to raise a live chat message where you will be connected to one of our cyber heroes 24/7, 365, and they'll be able to help you with whatever your problem is there. And then if you've just got something offline, you might just want to create one offline, and I'm just going to call one training, and then you can create that ticket offline, and then you can see the updates to that as people pick it up, and you can add in your replies to that. The good thing is, I just close this and click search. If you have an open ticket, you can click chat to go straight into a chat for that ticket as well. So you can actively go ahead and re-raise a chat for a ticket if one ticket is left open for you. Now, this is just a way of us, if you've got any questions at the moment, any feature requests, though we are working on a feature request board. We're just in the final stages of internal testing a third party for it. And we will be able to have feature requests where you can upvote. That's one of our biggest feature requests at the moment, to get a feature request board. So that will be coming, but for now you can raise tickets to raise any feature requests, custom report requests, or general questions. Even if you're just not sure on something, that's what they're there for. And it's not just during your onboarding, this goes on past there as well. All right, then we go to the security center. We can expand that, and we've got the login settings. So this is where we can add in geo restriction. So if you want to lock down so that you can only come in from certain countries, like for me, I've said that I can only log on from the United States. So if somebody tries to access my account from another country, they're going to get a message saying that my country is blocked. I can also add in additional IPs that are private, my own, so that I can only allow certain IPs to access. Also on this, we have the MFA settings. So if you want to enforce MFA, you can change that to yes, and then you can say which forms of MFA you want to allow. So if you only want people to be able to use OTC, you can actually set that up, you can update, and then as they next log on, they're going to be prompted to set up their OTC. So if you decide to switch from OTC to SMS, their OTC will still work for the next login, and then they'll be prompted for their SMS. And you can also see what people are currently using here as well. And if you need to override this for any particular user, maybe OTC for the whole company, but Mandy doesn't have OTC, she wants SMS, you can override and select a single user and put them in there to say, well, you can see there Mandy is SMS. So I can override that as well.
Got another question here, Michael.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a ThreatLocker system status page to check if there's possible outage affecting the ThreatLocker products?
Yes, sort of. We use Twitter. It's ThreatLocker CH. It's used for a few things, like if there's any webinars to discuss, that was a BCD edit. It's not normal webinars that will be posted on here, but that was a particularly bad breach of, well, potentially bad if you were affected, where RMMs are being used against people. We saw an increase. This was a webinar following that. Most of the time, it's going to be sort of updates around the portal. So if there's any issues, you can see T-Mobile customers having issues with SMS. So yeah, that's where you're going to see them. That's on the login page as well. So if I just go here, browser's guest, go to you will see here, you've got the tweets there. So if anything's affecting, it's always here. So if there's any outages at all, you're going to see that. Right. And two more parts of this portal. One is a system audit. Now, the system audit is very much a full audit of everything that happens in the system. So when you're logged into the portal, everything you're doing, everything your users are doing, you can see everything that happens in here. And yes, I know it comes up an awful lot. You can also see ThreatLocker staff as well in here. So if ThreatLocker goes in and starts looking at your computers or your computer groups, you're going to be able to see that as well. I've just opened up another tab and you can see my Michael at ThreatLocker account has gone to the computers page. So this is a full audit of everything that happens within your portal. So like the unified audit is everything that happens on your computers, this is everything that happens in the portal. And the last bit on your menu you'll see here is the ThreatLocker access. Now, by default, we tend to recommend sort of these. When you're onboarding, I do recommend giving full control to your solutions engineer. This is essential for them to really be able to do their job as onboarding you. So I do recommend that. And at the end, once you're onboarded and you're satisfied, you can change that to read only if you want to keep them on for a couple more calls or none. And you can change cyber heroes to none as well. Obviously, then you'll have to change it back before they can even see anything in your account. So if you come through on support and go, help, they're going to need you to open that up to either read only, or if you want them to help you make changes, full control. So this is how you control ThreatLocker access. The cyber heroes are our support, and solutions engineer is the person who's onboarding you. So whoever that is, not your salesperson. Your salesperson does not have access to this part of your account. They cannot go steal your computers and all that kind of stuff. They are very limited. This is your solutions engineer, the technical person who's guiding you through, gave you the demo. That's who that is. And like I said, you can take away their access at any point, though I do highly recommend it left on for the onboarding process to go as smoothly as it can. So that is the ThreatLocker portal in a nutshell. Now, our organizations, this is mostly towards the MSP side, or if you have multiple customers, but you can create these organizations manually by clicking new organization. And all you need is the name and the time zone. I do recommend the time zone. It can be changed later. It's just so that when you're viewing the unified audit, you want to make sure it's in the right time. You can also add branding. If you've got this set up on your parent level, every new organization will inherit it by default. And you can turn on ITAR compliancy as well. And you can do this all later. It's not just done during setup in creation. You can do it afterwards. You can go back in and make changes. Now, if you're deploying through an RMM, you don't need to worry about creating all your customers first. They will get created during that process of deployment. Now, before I talk about deployment, I know the question always comes up, so I'm going to preempt it. How do you uninstall? So there's obviously multiple reasons that you might need to remove ThreatLocker from the machine. Diagnosis of an issue, generally uninstall it does not help. If you are having an issue, come through to support. Uninstalling, not the best idea for that because it deletes all the logs and everything else. But you may have put it into the wrong organization. If you put it in the wrong organization, you can actually move the computer and move it into a different organization. You can also move it into a different group, and you can do it from there. Now, if you do need to uninstall, there is one very important step first. We need to disable the protection. We have tamper protection on our service that stops people from uninstalling, stopping the service, manipulating the files, anything like that. So I'm just going to disable tamper protection. I'm going to allow the user to end it from the computer, and I'll show you why in a second, but it doesn't have to be checked for this to work. I'm just going to start that for an hour. So as I switch over to my server, what's going to happen is it's going to disable tamper protection. It's going to let me know that it's disabled. And then I'll be able to uninstall. Uninstalling is pretty easy. You can do this from a script. I'm just going to do it via the control panel here. Via the command. ThreatLocker. And we're going to go and just run uninstall switch. And you'll see that pop up of the tray there for the tamper protection been disabled. And obviously, I've just uninstalled the tray, so that's now gone. If I hadn't checked that box, that pop-up wouldn't have shown up, which, as it happens, I triggered it just as it started as well. But that's why I had that pop-up, just so I knew what it was. Now, once it's uninstalled, you'll notice it is no longer in that organization. Uninstalling, really easy. It will remove everything. You can script that, but it's just basically removing it using the uninstall switch. But you do have to have tamper protection disabled first. Okay, so now for installing. Installing can be done via a few methods. So I'm going to go to the computers page, and I'm going to click Install New Computer. Now, you can click on here, and you'll be able to see all our deployment. Why does that not take you to deployment center? That would be so much easier. There we go. Into deployment, and you can see we've got a variety of scripts using most of the RMMs, general startup scripts with GPO, Intune, all of them. You can get all of that from here, and they'll give you full instructions on how to do that. So if we go into the Kaseya one, you can see you've got the full instructions telling you how to go through and do that. Now, you will notice when using an RMM, it prompts you to set in a unique identifier. That unique identifier is found on that Install New Computer page. It's just here. The unique identifier for your parent is the only one you need. So if you're going to deploy using a deployment script, you go to the computers page and you choose that one from here. You do not need to do a different one for each customer because the customer gets created during it. Now, in addition to those scripts, you can do a manual install. So I'm just going to manually install using our stub installer. I'll just download it. It's not very big. See, 149 KB. And I'm just going to run that stub installer. It does require an admin, and that will run then stub installer, and that computer will be installed. Takes about 30 seconds in total, and then the computer will show up. And you'll notice that it's initially in learning as well. Now, the other way you can do that is you can go into each individual group. There's a download icon here. And you'll notice that I've just got the download for servers. This is useful because I can take this link, and even though I'm not logged in on my server, I can actually access that link to be able to download it from there. So I can go into that direct link. I have to accept the ULA because I'm not logged in, so I haven't already accepted it. And then I can download the same as I did before. I do recommend using the stub installer over the MSI. MSI has a great place in certain scripts, but the stub installer is always going to pull the latest version for the group you're installing into, so you don't have to worry about it updating afterwards. And you're required to be online to do that initial check-in anyway, so the MSI is more for the scripts that require MSIs. So now we've installed that. I've now got under my customer, you'll see I've got one in each. And if we go to the computers, we can now see the two computers. Now, when it first installs, it's got to check up the driver and get it all done. But you'll notice afterwards, I've now got my full ThreatLocker version. And we're going to notice a few things on here. So one is the baseline. The baseline being uploaded means that that computer has told us everything that's on there. The first thing that ThreatLocker is going to do is it's going to scan all of the files on the computer. And we're going to profile off that based on this learning. So I'm just going to click maintenance mode here, and we can see that I'm in learning mode for automatic group, and I'm going to be on that for a while. These settings are pulled from the group and they apply on installation. So if I go back to that group page, I edit the group, and this is just the default settings. So do you want to automatically create policies? By default, you're going to want group policies. It basically makes your learning process easier because you'll be able to learn if you install this on 100 computers, each one of those computers will add to that policy set and those application definitions, and it will make that workstations group a lot faster in profiling. Now, if you just want to create policies for each computer, but learn everything that's installed, you can do that. You can have different policy sets for every computer. And then we get down into more, which is the system policies, which is just the drivers. I'm going to cover that a bit more towards the end of the week. I think on Friday, we're going to talk more about when you'd use this. But this basically means that I'm only going to learn the drivers and the files that are unique to this computer. And then, of course, I can create no policies. And then we have this initial learning mode. Now, again, this takes place when you create the computer. So when it's installed, if I set that to indefinite, it's going to stay in learning until I take it out. I can choose 28 days, 7 days, 1 day, no days, go straight secured. But by default, these are the settings. Group policies indefinitely. This is a good place to start because this is going to give you the best experience in learning everything that you've got. And once we've installed, after a few minutes, we're going to start seeing things flooding this unified audit. So we can already see the things that I'm running. And what we'll see eventually is that baseline coming through. So I'll be able to go into action type of baseline, click search, and we'll start seeing that baseline. So this is just every file being cataloged into my baseline so that this machine can then start creating policies. And then as it does that, those policies are going to get created. So we'll go into workstations here, and we'll see that we've started creating some policies already for the programs that are built. If I go to my ThreatLocker training, my parent account, and look at policies, I've got a lot less policies in there because the default policies are a lot more reserved. There's just a handful of Windows ones that we find are recommended, and some things for like meeting tools on your workstations. And if we switch into servers, there's even less. Just blocking a few things that are recommended and basically giving you a good start. But while you're in learning, nothing is going to be blocked on those machines. We're just going to learn the files. The users aren't going to really notice that the program's even there. So you can get away with rolling this out and just letting it learn. And this is generally the process, whether you're an enterprise or an MSP, if you're doing it internally or one of your customers, pick a group of computers and roll it out. And even if you're not in your initial stages, maybe you've been a customer for a while, you've got a new customer you're onboarding, this is still the process. Roll it out. And this is where your SE is going to come in, your solutions engineer. He's going to give you the demo. He's going to help you deploy. And then he's going to say, we'll speak in a week. And the idea is you leave ThreatLocker alone for a week. It learns. It creates policies. Your solutions engineer will check up on it and just make sure it's all running smoothly for you. And then when you get into your next call, that's when you start talking about the next steps and what's learned and stuff like that. And we're going to cover learning and seeing some more of that tomorrow. And we're going to give this time to actually learn and see what's going on. Now, I've only got 2 machines, 1 server, 1 workstation. The more machines you have, the faster this learning process is. If you install on 1, generally the second machine you install on is going to need that same similar learning period, because unless they're identical. Now, I have seen somebody deploy to a VM once, created his policies, tweaked them, locked the computer down, locked the group down, and then deployed to everybody else without any learning. it worked for him, might work for you. But if this is the sort of default process, and that's what we want a nice smooth process. And you're going to find a lot of that through the training. This is about making sure that your process in securing your machines and taking the next steps in security is smooth for you. Because the last thing you want, I mean, you could really secure your computers. You could right now go onto your customers or your users, just unplug their computers and say, don't touch. And your computers would be 100% secure, but it would not be smooth. Your users would be angry, they'll make noise, and they'll generally make your life hell. So while we're doing this, we want to strike that balance because you're going to have customers that are going to give you resistance. We want to make sure that the resistance is minimal. And that's what I'm going to be training you on. I'm going to be training you on how to get through this process with as little resistance from users as possible. And I'm going to tell you a few stories as we go as well. So I hope you don't mind me talking because I talk a lot. But I'm going to tell you some stories from back when I was an MSP, users' experiences. And I was an MSP years ago. How many? 4 years ago. It's getting on. And I used to hunt ransomware. That was one of the parts of my job. I went on site and identified, sourced, and recovered from ransomware. I am much happier at ThreatLocker now because I don't have to do that. I can show people how to stop it before it happens. And in the worst case of something like a piece of software you trust being used, how to mitigate the damage and minimize the impact so that effectively you could run ransomware on a computer and it wouldn't hurt you. And that's what this is going to be. I'm going to be showing you how everything fits together. I'm going to show you how to use a system effectively and how to make this a smooth transition for you and your users. So the sessions will generally be about an hour long. Just so you're aware, we start at 1, we finish at 2. This is all Eastern time. And then we have an extra 30-minute buffer in case everybody has a lot of questions. If you do have questions, you can just pile them into the Q&A and Mandy will either interrupt me as we're going, or we might wait to the end, depending on where they fit. If I'm going to answer the question in a couple of days, I will inform you that and tell you which day. So if you ask something that I know I'm going to cover on like Wednesday, I'll let you know. But how much of that extra 30 minutes is filled very much depends on your questions. Now, as we go through the days, the amount of content will be, like I said, pretty much filling the hour. On Friday, there is a lot less. That is designed to give it extra time for questions that you didn't think of on the day and want to go back to. So if you want to cover something and go, oh, I just want to cover this a little bit more, we'll have plenty of time for that on Friday as well. The only thing I will say, if you are an existing customer, if you're already using ThreatLocker, questions that are going to require me to look at your audit, I'm not going to be able to answer them. I will direct you to the cyber heroes. I will try and answer them in as best and vague way as possible. So I'm not talking about your data directly, but obviously I don't want to bring up your account on a training session with hundreds of other people. So that's pretty much it for today. Any questions, Mandy?
Not right at the moment. Give them another minute or two to put their questions in the Q&A if they have some.
Yeah, and as Mandy said before, it takes up to about 24 hours for the recording. We try to get them done quicker. I aim for them to be done and in that box for the morning for the following day. But I am at the mercy of our marketing department for that because they do all the editing. So yeah.
Oh, is there a dark mode or a dark theme for ThreatLocker?
There is not at the moment. It is something that has been discussed. We are redesigning our portal this year. So there will be another version of the portal coming out later this year, probably towards the end of the year. And there is talks of there being a dark mode for that.
Actually, that's on our internal feature request board that we're testing out, Michael.
Yes, it is actually on there. So as soon as, if our feature request board it works and we don't have any problems with it, you'll be able to go on there and you'll be able to upvote these things as well. The more votes we get, the faster we do things, like building a feature request board.
Yes.
But yes, it will be that feature request board. I am hoping for it to be released to the public by the end of this week.
And that particular feature already has 4 votes.
4 votes, and that's just internal. So yes, I can imagine that being highly done.
So for how long after this week will those recordings stay available?
That's a question for you, Mandy.
I think they're going to be safe for 90 days. That's what we've been aiming for.
90 days. Obviously, you can download them from that link as well. And these sessions, now, I don't advise you coming back every couple of weeks to do one of these because the content pretty much isn't going to change. But if you've got other engineers you want to sign up, we do these sessions every couple of weeks. I think it's the 1st and 3rd week of the month.
Give or take, depending on holidays, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, working around holidays and stuff like that. But there are plenty of these sessions. They're the one, actually, Colin will be doing the next one on the 1st week of next month, but the content will be pretty much the same. The delivery might differ depending on who's giving them. But yeah, the content will be the same, but you can sign up for these again if you want your other engineers to be on them.
And will the portal redesign significantly change the way we use the portal, or is it mostly aesthetic?
We are incorporating a whole number of feature requests into the rebuild. So it will mostly be aesthetic, but there will be significant changes in ease. So if somebody, there's been quite a few requests on various pages, and the new design is going to incorporate some of them. So they're kind of a mixture of both, but mostly aesthetic. It's actually a new technology, so it will have some performance impacts for improvements, not impacts. Impact sounds bad. Performance improvements for, say, our Australian partners and stuff like that. So yes, we are changing the technology it's written in. So there will be some performance improvements. There will be some changes, but a lot of it will be aesthetic, and most of it is based on feature requests to make it easier to use.
Awesome, thank you.
So if you do have things that you go, God, I wish it did this, as soon as that feature request board is up, feel free to go putting them on there. If not, come through to Cyber Hero now if you do have requests. I do suggest that you use the portal first, as it's intended, just to see, because you might put in a feature request and then realize that what you've asked for was kind of irrelevant because you'd never want it that way. But if you are using the portal, just put in the feature requests to the Cyber Heroes for now, and then when we have the feature request board, you can put them on there, and then other customers can upvote them, because we may put in some of your feature requests before the year's out. We're not putting all development on hold for the new portal or anything like that.
No, our portal team's still busy.
Very busy.
Well, looks like that might be it, Michael.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so again, it'll be the same time tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the same time. We will start on time tomorrow. Like I said, I gave 5 minutes extra. I always do on the Monday. But please join us tomorrow. It'll be each day this week. If you do happen to miss a session, the recordings will be added to the same link. And we pretty much get asked for that link every single day. So yes, it will always be posted. And then, yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Have a great rest of your Monday.
Thank you. And thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.